I never thought a dog that barely weighed 3 pounds could throw my entire existence off balance. Yet there I was, on an otherwise ordinary Sunday morning, halfway through a slice of burnt toast, when my grandmother shattered reality. Theodore Maximilian Winchester. Her voice cracked through the house like a lightning strike, rattling my coffee cup and my nerves. She only used my full name for 2 reasons: court appearances or impending doom. Since I hadn't committed a felony, recently, I braced for the second option. I shuffled into the living room. There she was, Grandma Cordelia, 82 years old, seated on her throne-like Victorian armchair, cane resting against her knee like an executioner's axe. At her feet sat Napoleon, her demon-possessed miniature pinscher. His glinting eyes followed me with all the affection of a lone shark. "Good morning, Grandma," I mumbled. "Sit." She tapped her cane once on the hardwood. Napoleon growled as if punctuating the command. "Family matters." That phrase could mean anything from, "let's reupholster the curtains," to "I've sold the house and joined a monastery in Tibet." With Grandma you never knew. "Theodore, my dear grandson," she began, her smile full of teeth and menace, "the time has come for you to get married." I spat coffee so hard Napoleon ducked. "What?" She brandished her cane like Moses parting the Red Sea. "Don't shout at me. You're 28. By now you should have been married at least 5 years. You're lagging behind schedule." "Schedule? Grandma, I don't even have a girlfriend." "Exactly." She clapped her hands, delighted. "Which is why I arranged everything for you." That sentence should have been outlawed. "Do you know Alice Belmont Du Bois?" she asked. The name scratched at my memory. "Isn't she the daughter of the pet shop magnate?" "The very one. Veterinarian, 26, brilliant with animals." She patted Napoleon, who bared his teeth in a grin that screamed traitor. "She even made him do tricks yesterday." "Tricks? Yesterday? You met her yesterday and didn't tell me?" "You were working, dear. We talked for 3 hours. Lovely girl. Intelligent, funny, patient enough to tolerate Napoleon. What more could a young man want in a wife?" "Grandma," I said, trying to stay calm, "this is 2025, not 1825. People don't get married because their families arrange it over tea." "Rubbish." She waved a hand. "Passion fades. What matters is compatibility, mutual respect, and a decent savings account. Your grandfather and I were matched by our parents, and we had 50 delightful years together." "Yeah, but you two actually—" "Don't argue. The wedding folder is ready." She pulled a thick file from beside her chair and scattered photographs across the coffee table. My photos. My school portraits, graduation shots, awkward vacation selfies. Interspersed were glossy images of Alice Belmont Du Bois, like some twisted yearbook designed by fate itself. "This is absurd." Napoleon barked, agreeing with her, as always. "And what if I refuse?" I asked. Her smile shifted into that slow, terrifying smirk that had haunted my childhood nightmares. She leaned forward, voice calm as a storm on the horizon. "Theodore, darling, you do recall the family inheritance, don't you?" Every molecule in my body froze. The inheritance. The house. The trust fund that kept me afloat as a freelance designer. All of it dangled by a thread in Grandma's fist. "You wouldn't." "Oh, but I would. Your great-grandfather's will was very clear. No respectable marriage by 30, no inheritance. And you, my sweet boy, have exactly 1 year and 4 months. Napoleon hopped onto my foot and sank his tiny teeth into my shoelace, as if sealing the contract. "This is emotional blackmail," I whispered. "This," Grandma corrected, rising with surprising grace, "is grandmotherly love. Now, 3 o'clock this afternoon. Corner Cafe, table 7. Wear the blue shirt I bought you. And the cologne. Alice likes men who smell presentable." She swept from the room, Napoleon scampering at her heels like a furry executioner's assistant, leaving me surrounded by photographs and panic. I checked the clock. 11:30, in 3.5 hours, I'd be on a blind date with a stranger chosen by my grandmother, my inheritance hanging in the balance. And the worst part? Deep, deep down, a flicker of curiosity sparked. Because honestly, what kind of woman could make Napoleon, the devil's lapdog, willingly perform tricks? I'd like to state for the record, choosing an outfit should never feel like a life-or-death decision. And yet, at 2:30 p.m. on a Sunday, my bedroom looked like a clothing bomb had detonated. Jeans, shirts, socks, every single bad decision I'd ever bought at a clearance sale was now strewn across the bed. 15 minutes to go. 15 minutes until I walked into a cafe to meet a woman I'd never spoken to, but who was apparently auditioning for the role of my wife. The blue shirt, was waiting on the closet door. Grandma's Christmas gift. Formal. The fabric equivalent of a threat. I sighed, shoved myself into it, and sprayed on her cologne. It smelled expensive, smooth, like someone who owned a yacht. I did not own a yacht. I owned 3 overdue electric bills. You can do this, I muttered to the mirror. It's just coffee. Maybe she's boring, maybe she chews loudly, maybe she hates dogs, and you can report back to Grandma with a triumphant no. The mirror didn't answer. But somewhere in my head a small voice whispered, or maybe she's perfect. Maybe Grandma's insane plan actually works. I ignored the voice. I had bigger problems, like not sweating through this shirt before I even made it to the cafe. The corner cafe was buzzing. Families, couples, friends, everyone looked so normal. I, on the other hand, was about to sit down for a state-sanctioned marriage interview at table 7. And there she was. Alice Belmont Du Bois. She wasn't the polished heiress I'd imagined. No pearls, no power suit. Instead, she wore round glasses, a teal blouse, and jeans. Her wavy hair was twisted up with a pencil, like she hadn't bothered with anything fancier. She was reading a paperback titled The Definitive Guide to Neurotic Dogs, and laughing at it. Alone. For a few seconds I forgot how to breathe. She looked up, caught me staring, and smiled. A smile that knocked the floor out from under me. "Theodore?" she asked. I swallowed. "Just Theo. Theodore is only when my grandma's mad at me." Alice laughed, light and unforced. "So, daily then?" I sat down, already flustered. "Pretty much." We made small talk, but it didn't stay small for long. She closed her book and said, with alarming cheerfulness, "You know your grandmother has a dossier on you, right? I think it might be thicker than my medical textbooks." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, dossier?" She started ticking items off on her fingers. "You're a graphic designer. You hate sugar and coffee. You once busted your knee falling off a bike when you were 7. You snore when you're tired. Oh, and you secretly paint but don't show anyone." I gaped like a fish. That's wildly invasive." "Completely," Alice agreed, grinning. "Also, you have an irrational fear of pigeons." "I do not fear pigeons," I said too loudly. Heads turned. Alice's eyes lit up with mischief. "Yep. That's exactly how your grandma said you'd react." And then she laughed, really laughed, and the sound was so contagious I found myself laughing too, despite the humiliation. Alice was not what I expected. At all. She wasn't stiff or formal or scary. She was sharp, funny, and far too at ease for someone whose mother had apparently already chosen the wedding flowers. "Oh yes," Alice said matter-of-factly. "White roses and lilies. My mom has a whole Pinterest board." I nearly choked on my water. "She what?" "She also picked the church," Alice added casually. "Same one where my grandparents got married. Tradition and all that. This is escalating way too fast." "Tell that to the band she already has in mind," Alice said, dead serious for a beat. Then she broke into another grin. "Relax, I'm kidding. Mostly. Though she really did mention orchids." I buried my face in my hands. Alice reached across the table and tapped my knuckles. "Breathe, Theo. Look, I know this is insane. Our grandmothers basically staged a coup against our love lives. But I'm not angry anymore. Yesterday I yelled so much the neighbors called the cops. True story. But today," she shrugged, "today I'm curious." "Curious?" Her honey-colored eyes met mine. "Because any man who can get Napoleon's approval must have something going for him." "Wait, he likes me?" I nearly shouted. "That dog wants me dead." Alice shook her head. "Nope. Cordelia showed him your photos. He wagged his tail. Do you know how rare that is? He barks at air molecules." I didn't know what to say, so I just stared. At her glasses. At the little scar on her chin. At the way she made panic feel almost fun. "So," she said softly, "what do we do now? Run to Mexico?" I offered. "Can't. My Spanish is awful." "Canada?" "Je parle un peu français," she said in the worst French accent I'd ever heard. I snorted. "Terrible. You'd blow our cover instantly." We laughed. Really laughed. For a moment, it wasn't an arranged date. It wasn't blackmail. It was just 2 people in a cafe, joking about escape plans neither of us actually wanted to take. Alice leaned in, suddenly serious again. "I have an idea. Let's pretend this isn't about them. Not today. Just you and me, normal people, seeing if we click. And if we don't, we go our separate ways. No wedding planners, no dogs, no grandmothers." I blinked. And if we do click? She tilted her head, smiling like she already knew the answer. Then maybe the grandmothers weren't entirely wrong. 3 months. That's how long it had been since Alice Belmont Du Bois walked into my life with her crooked pencil bun dog anxiety textbook, and smile that rearranged my universe. 3 months since our non-arranged, totally not forced date turned into hours of laughter, late-night calls, and one very awkward first kiss while Napoleon the Pinscher barked at us from the windowsill like an outraged chaperone. Now I was in the attic, paintbrush in hand, blue streak across my cheek, working on a canvas Alice had bullied me into starting. She discovered my secret, painting, and promptly declared the attic my studio. I was mid-stroke when the thunder started. Not from the sky. From downstairs. Cordelia Winchester, you've gone too far this time. That voice belonged to Brennus Belmont Du Bois, Alice's mother. And when Brennus raised her voice, city ordinances should have required an earthquake warning. I went too far? Grandma Cordelia screeched back. You hired a photographer to follow them. My paintbrush clattered to the floor. I sprinted down the stairs, half blue, and landed in what can only be described as a domestic apocalypse. Grandma Cordelia, 82 and spry as a ninja, stood balanced on her armchair brandishing her cane like a saber. Brennus, elegant in her 60s with hair as immaculate as a royal portrait, waved a fat folder of photographs like damning evidence. Napoleon tore circles around the room, barking joyously at the chaos. What is happening? I shouted. Both women whirled on me like dueling generals spotting a deserter. Your grandmother, Brennus barked, jabbing the folder, hired a private investigator to dig through my family tree. Your mother, Grandma countered, cane raised, hired a wedding planner. Without consulting anyone. You what? I sputtered. At that exact moment, Alice burst in through the front door, cheeks flushed, hair in wild rebellion against her ponytail. Mom, she yelled. Please tell me you did not hire a jazz band for a wedding that doesn't exist yet. It was only a deposit, Brennus said, attempting innocence. In case you decided. And you, Alice spun to my grandmother, please tell me you didn't trace my family line back to the 1600s. Grandma had the decency to hesitate for a full 2 seconds. It was just a preliminary check. Dementia can skip generations, you know. My family does not have dementia. Brennus roared. All families have dementia, Grandma shot back. She jabbed her cane in my direction. Look at my grandson. I'm right here. I protested. Alice turned to me, saw the streak of blue paint across my face and, God help me, started laughing. At first it was quiet, then uncontrollable, shaking, doubled-over laughter. You, she gasped between fits, you look completely insane. She wasn't wrong. Brennus tried to intervene, softening her tone. Alice darling, we only want what's best. What's best? You bought a wedding dress without telling me. It's beautiful, Brennus insisted. Vintage French lace. I hate French lace. Nobody hates French lace. Grandma snapped. I do, I blurted out, desperate to back her up. If Alice hates it, I hate it too. Dead silence. Everyone stared at me. Napoleon tilted his head, clearly thinking humans are doomed. That's when Alice climbed onto the coffee table. The actual heirloom coffee table. Grandma nearly fainted. Enough, Alice said, her voice cutting through the room. Listen, you adorable tyrants. Theodore and I have been together for 3 months. 3 months in which we learned we laugh at the same stupid jokes, that he makes better coffee than Starbucks, and that I can actually get Napoleon to behave when he's around. Napoleon wagged approvingly. And in those 3 months, Alice continued, eyes fierce, we fell in love. Naturally. On our own. Without jazz bands, without detectives, without lace. So here's how this works. If Theodore Winchester ever decides to propose, it will be his choice in his way when he wants. Not yours. My heart stopped. She'd said it out loud. Well, she climbed down and stood in front of me, close enough for me to smell her vanilla shampoo over the faint stench of wet dog chaos. Her eyes sparkled. Understood? She asked the 2 matriarchs, never looking away from me. Cordelia and Brennus exchanged one glance. Then, as if choreographed, propose to her now, they shouted together. Alice's jaw dropped. Mine too. And then we both laughed, helpless, delirious laughter that somehow cut the tension in half. You know, I said, brushing paint off my cheek, I had planned something more romantic. Candlelight. A sunset. Maybe a string quartet. Alice grinned. Theo, if you propose right now in this circus, with paint on your face and a deranged pinscher as our witness, It will be the most romantic thing anyone's ever done for me. I looked around. Grandma clutching her cane like it was a holy relic. Brennis with her hands over her heart. Napoleon sitting upright like a tiny judge. "Oh, what the hell?" I muttered and dropped to one knee. "Alice Belmont Du Bois," I said, taking her hand, "will you marry me?" Even knowing it comes with an inheritance-bound grandmother, a meddling mother, and the distinct risk that our children will inherit world-class manipulation skills. "Yes," she shouted before I even finished. "Yes," I shouted back. Napoleon barked like a gavel slamming down. And just like that, chaos had somehow turned into the beginning of forever. The living room exploded. "Yes," screamed Grandma Cordelia and Brennis in unison, tears streaming down their cheeks. Napoleon barked once, short and decisive, as if declaring the motion passed. Alice tackled me to the rug, and suddenly we were kissing while two matriarchs sobbed with joy and a tiny pinscher circled us like we'd just scored the winning goal at the World Cup. "I knew it," Cordelia sniffled, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "You knew nothing," Brennis snapped, though her mascara was already halfway down her cheeks. "It was both of you," Alice shouted from the floor, still in my arms. "And as insane as it is to admit, thank you. Because sometimes, apparently, love does arrive through emotional blackmail, private investigators, pre-purchased wedding dresses, and one psychopathic pinscher with disturbingly good instincts. And if that's not a rom-com, I don't know what is." 2 years later. If anyone had told me I'd be living happily with two scheming grandmothers, a pinscher who thought he was Napoleon Bonaparte, and a wife who conversed daily with neurotic animals, I would have laughed them out of the room. But here I was, in the attic-turned-studio painting, while Alice hummed in the veterinary clinic she'd built in our backyard. "Theodore." Grandma's voice boomed through the house, still sharp enough to make me flinch. "Come down, we have visitors." I sighed, wiped my hands on my paint-stained jeans and headed downstairs, already bracing for another one of her surprises. But what I saw made me stop halfway. Alice sat on the couch, cradling a baby. A young woman beside her was weeping with gratitude. "This is Marcus," Alice said softly. "He was lost in the park for 3 days. Napoleon found him." Sure enough, Napoleon sat proudly at her feet, tail wagging in slow, satisfied sweeps. The baby reached for his ears, tugging them with clumsy hands, and, miracle of miracles, Napoleon didn't bite. He just endured like a saint. "He's a hero now," Grandma announced, chest puffed with pride. "Already found 2 cats, a parrot, and now a child." The baby's mother stood, trembling with relief. "You saved my life." "Thank you." She left with Marcus, still crying, and the house fell quiet. Just the 4 of us, Alice, me, Grandma, and Napoleon, back to pretending he was a normal dog. "Sometimes," Alice murmured, curling against me, "I think Napoleon always knew. From the beginning." I chuckled. "Because he only bites people he disapproves of?" "Exactly. And he never really tried to bite you." I looked at the little monster, his black eyes gleaming. "You knew, didn't you? You furry little Cupid." Napoleon tilted his head, wagged his tail once. Translation, obviously, idiot. Alice smiled that secret smile of hers. "And there's something else." She took my hand and guided it to her stomach. It took me a moment. Then I froze. We're pregnant," Grandma Cordelia declared triumphantly before Alice could answer. "And it's a boy. Maximilian Napoleon Winchester." "Grandma," I shouted. Alice doubled over laughing. "Relax," she said, wiping tears from her cheeks. "We've already decided. If it's a boy, Theodore Jr., if it's a girl, Cordelia Alice. And if it's twins?" I asked weakly. Alice grinned. "Then we'll need reinforcements." "Good thing," Grandma said smugly, "that you have 2 experienced women in the family who specialize in arranging." "No," I cut in. "Promise me you won't arrange marriages for our children." Cordelia and Brennis exchanged a long, conspiratorial look. Then, in perfect unison, "We promise." Behind their backs, their fingers crossed. Napoleon barked once, sharp and sly, as if he were laughing at me. And just like that, I knew, my family was about to get even crazier. Alice was pregnant. Napoleon had become the neighborhood's pint-sized hero. And me? I was painting the happiest canvases of my life. Because sometimes, the best kind of love is the kind that barges in uninvited, dragging grandmothers, blackmail, and one diabolical pinscher along for the ride. The end. P.S. Theodore Jr. was born 9 months later with his mother's eyes and his great-grandmother's stubbornness. Napoleon became his official protector and sleeps under his crib every night. Some things never change.